In my quest to review all the Nordic benches, it's time to take a look at the Nordic Back Extension version 2. Huge shout out to the TIB bar guy for sending me this to check out for review. If you want to check this product out, click the link down in the description. But before we get into the video, if you're a busy parent and you want to work with me and my team to achieve your body transformation goals, click the second link down in the description. As strange as this may seem, the first thing that I want to talk about in this review is actually the advertising for this product, because the TIB bar guy claims that this is a 3-in-1 machine. A full-size Nordic bench, a hip thrust / split squat bench, and a back extension machine. When I reviewed the Freak Athlete Nordic Hyper GHD, my only complaint in that entire video was that they claimed it to be a 6-in-1 machine, with one of those functions being a reverse hyper. It did not live up to that one specific claim, and I said in the video that it's more like a 5-in-1 machine. On the TIB bar guy website, they point out that you can do reverse hypers with this machine, but they do not claim it to be a core function, nor do they call this a 4-in-1 machine. When the TIB bar guy claims this to be a 3-in-1 machine, they only list the 3 functions that it does exceptionally well, meaning that you're getting exactly what is promised. That's not to say you can't do other exercises on this machine, because you certainly can, and we'll talk about a couple of those later in the video. But for now, let's focus on the 3 primary functions of this machine. First and foremost, this is a full-sized Nordic bench with regression levels from 0 degrees to 45 degrees. It adjusts in 5-degree increments from 45 degrees down to 15 degrees, but then drops from 15 degrees to 8 and from 8 to 0. The numbers are laser cut, so they're nice and easy to see. And as a nice little touch, there's also a cool little stealth logo across the front foot. The machine is 60 inches by 30 inches, with 30 inches being the widest point here at the handles. And when you store this machine away vertically, it only takes up 19 inches by 30 inches. An important distinction about the Nordic Back Extension version 2 is it is a full length Nordic bench, whereas most adjustable Nordic benches, like the Nordic Pro behind me and the Freak Athlete Nordic Hyper GHD that is just off camera over there, are not full-length Nordic benches. And as I already mentioned at the beginning of the video, it does an exceptional job as a Nordic bench. So let's move on to the next function, which is the hip thrust function. To adjust it into hip thrust / split squat mode, it's pretty easy. You just loosen this little knob right here, pull that pin. Pro tip, actually slide this all the way out, flip it, and then reinsert it. And then tighten it back down. So pretty simple. And then you come down here to the foot of the bench, loosen up that part, pull out the little foot pad. And a cool little thing that I'll show here is you do not have to insert this a certain way, because they actually put holes in both sides. Something that was not necessary, but is actually a pretty cool little feature. So you put that in there. I like to put it on the highest setting, tighten it down, easy peasy, and then loosen this guy up a little bit, pull that pin, let it all the way down to the ground. And a little interesting thing here is these handles actually sit on the ground when it's in hip thrust mode, so it adds a little bit of extra lateral stability, which is pretty cool, especially when you're doing split squats, since you're putting uneven pressure on the bench. This machine feels very stable, and I really enjoy it for the hip thrust function. I also like it for split squats, but the one thing that I do want to make sure to note here is that this does not come up super high above this pad. And so when I go to do my split squats and put my foot back on the pad, you can see my toe just barely touches the top of the bench. It's not a huge note, and to be honest, I kind of haven't decided if I think that's a bad thing or if I think that's a good thing, because it actually seems like it adds just the tiniest little extra bit of stability, but at the same time, it also feels a little weird because I'm used to my foot being on a leg roller and not touching when I do split squats. So I guess that's something I'm not really gonna consider a pro or a con, it's just a note. And then if we were to take it from here to back extension mode, so we'll take this pad back out and put it back down here. Tighten that back down. Take this guy out, flip it around, slide it back in, grab this pin, raise it up. We'll put it at, let's say 40 degrees. We'll lock it down. There's a little knob right here. We'll take this knob out, pull that back, slot this in there so we don't lose it. Set it off to the side. And then one final knob, loosen that up, pull it, and then lower this guy down in there. You have your back extensions. There's not much to say about the back extension mode. It works really good as a back extension, but one thing that I do want to note that I find a little bit interesting is because of how they design the pad and it being a little bit different than a typical back extension machine where there's nothing between your legs and then there's just the two pads that sit on your hips. They have a full pad here with a little cutout for your man parts. And because of the way they have it designed, you can actually use this for Nordics while it's in back extension mode. So if for some reason you have a workout where you're doing back extensions and Nordics in the same workout, you really don't have to make much of an adjustment to be able to do Nordic, because right now we're in back extension mode. Easy peasy. And let's say if I wanted to adjust from here to do, say, a 25-degree assisted Nordic curl, I just let it down and then I can do my Nordic curls. I don't even have to get all the way off the machine to make the adjustment. And speaking of the pad design, the pad itself is a really high quality pad. It's quite thick. As you can see, it's nice and dense. It doesn't give too much. I think it's gonna hold up for a long time. The stitching looks pretty good. The vinyl is a really high quality vinyl. The leg rollers feel nice. Overall, it's just a really nice feeling piece of equipment. And along with the main three functions that we have here, you can do a few other exercises as well. You can do preacher curls, Copenhagen holds, and leg raises, just to name a few. But as great as this machine is, there are a couple of drawbacks. One of those being when you're adjusting specifically from back extension mode back to Nordic bench mode, it can be a little bit fiddly. So if we pull this and adjust this outward, that part is easy peasy. But when we go to put this pad back on, it can be a little bit difficult because there's no guide mechanism to make sure that this goes on just right. So you kind of just have to lean down and eyeball it. And then once you get in there, it's good to go. Now you can see it's not the biggest deal in the world. It took me like 10 seconds to make that adjustment, but every once in a while there have been a couple times where I've had a little bit of trouble finding the hole, and it took a good 20-30 seconds to make that adjustment. And another potential drawback is something that I actually said earlier in the video was a really cool thing that they added. Because of the way they use the handles to increase the stability of the machine when it's all the way horizontal, I'm curious to see how these handles hold up over time and see if the rubber actually ends up wearing off the end of these handles because they're being used for stability, but only time will tell. And one thing that I do like about the TIB bar guy is that they're open to feedback. I actually have already mentioned to them about the need for a guiding mechanism to make it more easily slot into place, and they appreciated the feedback and said that they were going to look into incorporating that into the design in the future. So it was cool and refreshing to have a company that appreciates feedback and just wants to make the absolute best product that they can make. And the only thing left is the price. This machine at full retail is $699. However, at the time of recording, this machine is only $449. And thanks to the TIB bar guy, they gave me a code for you guys. If you use code Treadaway at checkout, it'll save you an additional 10%. So at that price, I would say definitely check this machine out. Link down in the description. As always, God bless you and your family, and we'll see you next week. But before we get into the video, if you want to work with me and my team, come on now.